As-salmu'alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my brothers and sisters in Islam. Peace be upon you to my brothers and sisters in humanity. I'm very sad that I could not be with you today for this very important and outstanding event, to clarify and to talk about the evils of anti-Semitism and what I call its mutated virus, Islamophobia. Because I truly believe that anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are just two variants of a sick and perverted way of thinking. And it's with sadness as well that I find myself in the position of being accused of being anti-Semitic. And most certainly the event today was an opportunity for me to not only clarify my own personal position, but also to appeal to my Muslim brothers and sisters, especially some of those youth who sometimes confuse the unfortunate and terrible actions that are perpetrated by the State of Israel and its army upon Palestinians. And they confuse those actions with the generality of the Jewish people, and the two things are simply not synonymous. It doesn't mean that because the State of Israel commits certain crimes that every single Jewish person is therefore responsible and guilty, any more than those horrific crimes of terrorism perpetrated in the name of Islam means that you, my brothers and sisters in Islam, are also by default guilty. No. Everyone should be judged on their merits or their dismerits. That is how we should approach people. And so I am going to take this opportunity of this short video message to clarify something that I did say 27 years ago in Speaker's Corner. But I do invite anybody to look at the clip and see it for themselves. And notice first of all that just prior to the statement that has been used to label me anti-Semitic, I mentioned a verse of the Quran in which, and the context of the speech was, I was condemning racism, I was condemning tribalism, based upon what the Quran says, that God has made you into tribes and nations so that you may know one another, not that you should despise one another. Those were the very verses of the Quran that I was quoting. It was after that that a particular individual who was a persistent heckler in Speaker's Corner, who was saying some very insulting and abusive things about Islam, was talking to a particular individual, a Muslim who was also in the crowd, and they were disturbing the whole discussion. And that is when I said some words that were not only unfortunate, but without doubt, looking at them, hearing them, they were totally inappropriate, totally wrong. And to be honest, if I heard anyone saying those words, I would be shocked and I would reproach them. And for that, I apologize. I did not mean anything anti-Semitic. I didn't mean what I said to be an attack on Jewish people in general. In fact, it's very interesting that if you look at various other things that I've said about my experiences in Speaker's Corner, I made friends in my years down there with several rabbis. In fact, sometimes I was known for appealing to Jewish people and saying that, why are we fighting? Why are we disagreeing? We should both be calling people to the worship of the one God alone. And I made friendships with rabbis down there. And in 27 years of giving talks and lectures, thousands and thousands of talks and lectures, all that could be found against me was something I said in the heat of the moment, in an angry moment against a particular individual in Speaker's Corner 27 years ago. If I was anti-Semitic, surely you could find hundreds and hundreds of statements. But in fact, the opposite is true. You will actually find many statements where I have reminded Muslims, chastised the Muslims, criticized the Muslims for constantly, as is the tendency amongst some, to blame Jews for everything, to accuse them of being conspiratorial. That has been a constant theme within my lectures and talks, that is not the reality. That we Muslims, we should look to ourselves and we should blame ourselves, not other people. There is good and bad in every people. When it comes to our relationship with other human beings, there is good and bad in everybody. That is the reality. Whether you're a Jew, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, from whatever part of the world, whatever your skin color is, there are good and bad amongst everybody. And we need to treat people on their merits. And we need to treat them also on their dismerits. A few months ago, there was a memorial for the Auschwitz concentration camp. And originally I had planned to go to Poland, to that camp, to participate in that memorial. But I wasn't able to do that because I needed to be with my mother at the time. And I was discussing with my mother about my plans, and she said, "Oh, do you know that 2 of my aunts died in Auschwitz? They weren't Jewish, but they died there." And that was very shocking. You see, brothers and sisters, what is very important for us all to realize is that when these people who espouse anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, they don't care who they attack or why they attack them. They're quite happy to accuse one person of being anti-Semitic, while they themselves may quite readily harbor anti-Semitic feelings and thoughts, because their purpose is not truth. Their purpose is to cause hatred and division wherever they can. And the problem is when the politics of hate, when the politics of division and divisiveness, of pitching one group of people against another, when that comes to dominate, and when they often, as they do, choose a particular group of people, focus on them, and focus people's hatred upon them, as today I believe the main focus of that is most definitely the Muslims, and we can see that. Only today I was reading an article in The Independent about some shocking statistics that 1 in 3 children in this country believe that Muslims are taking over. 1 in 3 have negative attitudes towards Islam and Muslims. That's an astronomical number. Where do they get these ideas from? Where do they get these thoughts from? Who puts these ideas into their heads? It's something we have to think about. And if we imagine that, well, it's only the Muslims that are going to get treated badly, it's only the Muslims that are going to get dealt with unjustly, that's never the case. Because although my great aunts were not Jewish, they were Polish. They were actually in the concentration camp because their husbands or their fathers were officers in the Polish army. And for the Nazis, it didn't matter. If you were opposed to them, you would be part of their clampdown, part of their attack, part of their persecution, because they only tolerate those who agree with them. They don't tolerate those who disagree with them. And that's what we have to understand, brothers and sisters. This hatred is something we all have to stand up together and fight against. And I hope that today's event is one small step towards doing that, whether it's anti-Semitism or Islamophobia or any type of racism. It's just simply not acceptable.